Good afternoon, all. On behalf of IOT Academy, we welcome you all for the 9th session of National Level Faculty Refresher Program on teaching strategies, methodologies, and technologies in HEIs. Let me introduce the resource person of today's session, Dr. Vinodini. Dr. Vinodini is currently working as a professor of business management, Anwarul Allum College of Business Management, Telangana. Her academic qualifications include BCom, BA, MBA, and PhD in management from Osmania University. She has got 20 years of teaching experience and 2 years of industry experience. She has to have read 2 books and 27 research publications in national and international conferences. She has participated and has presented numerous papers at various conferences and seminars. She is the recipient of Best Professor and Best Paper Presenter Awards. She is also a member of JLDC Hyderabad chapter. We welcome you, ma'am, and with this, we hand over the session to Dr. Vinodini. Ma'am, please.
Thank you for such a wonderful introduction about me. I would initiate with a small sloka today, like Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunatu Sahaviryam Karavavahi Tejasvinavavai Ma Vidvisharadai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This shloka says, let's enrich ourselves. Let's all enrich. Now I'll start with a small example about the concept of faculty development. I'll go with an example of Einstein. Einstein, what he has done is, once he gave a question paper to all the students and then he went off. After some time, the students were in great shock. They were like, how come same as last year paper it was circulated to us? Then one of the students went to the class admin and they said that, sir, this is the same as last year paper. Then the same thing was passed on to the controller of examination. Then he rushed to Einstein. He said, sir, how come did you forget that this is last year paper you have given them, and how is that the same thing is repeated? And he just paused for a while, smiled at him and said, yes, I have deliberately given this paper, the same question paper, but I want the students to write this year answers. That means there is a change in their mindset, change in the environment that has to be incorporated. So this is what the Einstein's example, which I would like to quote here. He said he wanted this year's answers with the same question paper. That means the learning process should go on. It should not be like last year what we have learned, we are done with that, isn't it? So I'll start with my PPT, what I have said, why faculty development, right? So the role of a teacher has undergone a lot of changes. There are 3 types of teachers, right? One who is like a full stop. That means he or she ensures that no more learning takes place after the lecture. The other is a question mark, who makes a student question. The next teacher is an exclamation. That means the way the teacher teaches creates an exclamation, makes the student wonder. I wish the teacher who produces a question mark and an explanation. That means exclamation are the ones who will develop themselves to be competent teacher and earn respect from students, whether it is higher education institutions or any kind of education, right? So we have to create questions. Please change the slide. Change the slide. Yeah. Now we see all great pictures. Radhakrishnan, Dr. Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, Dr. Rabindranath, Manmohan Singh Ji, like Savitribai Phule, Swami Vivekanand, Shivan, ISRO chairperson. So these are all great personalities. And do we all have to transform this? Do we? Our intention as a teacher is to transform. Go to the next slide. Am I suggesting we be like these great teachers? The answer is no. They provide us with inspiration and motivation to be great teachers. However, it is a different role to be a teacher in the modern context. The teacher knows everything and the students are vacuum. So the teacher is a part of a journey of the students' learning progress. It is not teaching process, but a learning process. Here, a teacher has to continuously learn. So suppose when we were students, we used to learn from the viewpoint of other, what do you call, as a student, like study for the examination and then, but as a teacher, we have to generate a question mark and an explanation among the students. Please change the slide. See, here we specify the present day teacher. He or she is a learner every day. He or she never thinks or imagines that he knows everything. Because today, for everything, students touch upon Google. For any doubt, they touch upon the Google. And teacher also cannot claim that I know everything, right? Every time a teacher prepares for the class, which is different from what has been done before, as knowledge undergoes change. And teacher provides an environment of learning to students. How does it happen? How does this go? The question is, how? Now here I touch upon certain neurobiological aspects which I'm connecting it to, so that at the end of the day, I would be answering the questions, right? Why we have brain? The question is why we have brain. Brain has evolved some 50,000 years back. We call it as. So, and the brain has three areas. See, as it's mentioned in the slide, that brains evolved as a way of processing the external world and then interpreting that in generating internal models so that you can navigate the world. So that you can navigate the world. See, you just check out the cerebrum, amygdala, cerebellum, right? Brainstem, spinal cord, all these. I'm not going deep diving into this, the biological aspect, neurobiological aspect. I'm giving you a picture about that. So please change the slide. About these neurons also, I talk about the dendrites and then axon. I'll come to you all that in a detail more, that cell body, node of granules, nucleus, all these I will discuss in the due course. Now, here, I wish to tell you an important thing. The brain has three areas. One is, the first one is reptilian brain. Reptilian brain. Like, just go back to the previous slide. I've just stated previous, here. The reptilian brain is here, it's connected, like the color has been given like a the backbone sort of thing, the spinal cord, that shape is given. That is called reptilian brain, right? And three segments you have made. Yeah, I'll tell about the reptilian brain. So reptilian brain basically tells us about, and it evolved, as I said, the brain evolved 50,000 years ago. Like like we breathe, we take breathing without our conscious, like our heart beats. Like do we know that we really check out that 70 times it beats, heart beats. So it does on its own. And This particular one, the basic concept is it functions on its own. And we look at it as a mammalian, they feel that, say, for example, I'll tell you, if a cat is there and if you close the doors and hit it, what it does, it fights back. That means if it has a, if it, suppose if you have opened the door and you start hitting that, then what it will do, it will fly. So there are two choices. It makes an easy choice. The reptilian brain creates choices, flight or fight. So that is what the reptilian brain basic role is. The second one is mammalian brain. The mammalian brain, which you can see at the bottom, there is one brownish color, left side. Then I have created colors, but basically it won't be in that colors part. So the mammalian brain makes a kind of love or affection kind of thing. Love and affection. Like I'll tell you. See, elephants, when we talk about elephants, after 40 years also, if it has been, what do you call, if suppose if it lost its child due to some hurt, so after 40 years also, if you bring that child of that elephant, it can recognize. The elephant can recognize. Why am I talking all this? We'll get to know in the due course of it, right? So, whereas our human beings, elephant can remember for 40 years, but human beings can remember forever. Forever. So, this is because the development of language. See, we are given an identity. Say, for example, I'm Dr. Vinodini. See, I have my identity. And language creates that kind of remembrance. We try to remember. Somebody calls Dr. Vinodini, so forever I remember my name, isn't it? So likewise, human beings can remember forever. I'm connecting this, the learning process and the remembering, right? So mammalian brain is like that. Coming to the point of the third aspect is neocortex. So neocortex is 80% of our brain is neocortex. 80% of our brain is neocortex. So the basic purpose of neocortex is like because we remember. So what we normally do is we plan for 5 years or 10 years, and we think about our elevating our capabilities to a higher extent, isn't it? So we do a lot of things. But whereas, and we know that geography, that this is one nation, that is one nation, we can go to this place. And so these are all certain things can be done with the third aspect of brain that is called neocortex. When it comes to animals, they cannot remember for such a long period. Only we human beings can remember. That is the power of a human being, isn't it? Say, for example, if even in some animals, that kind of power is there. They call it as, like, for example, hippopotamus or bear, you can take it. Bear, what it does is, it will go for hibernation. It can sleep for 1 to 2 months at a stretch. 1 to 2 months and wakes up. That means it can survive. That is its nature. Whereas humans can remember anything, not all animals, not animals. So that is the power of human brain. We can remember, we can, identify, we can recognize, we can reinforce. Right. So coming to the point of neocortex, this was formed 40,000 years back. Now, in the due course of it, earlier it was very small. Now it has become big. It has become big. The question here is, please change the slide. Then let's go to the next slide. Next slide. Yeah. As we said, in this 30 years ago, like, most of the working is done below our level of consciousness, right? The conscious mind influences thought processes, memory, emotions, and motivation. We like say, for example, the MRI imaging generally helps. We have active stage and resting stage, but resting stage active is as active as stage with different parts being active. When we go to sleep, for example, when we go to sleep, the next day we'll wake up fresh. We'll wake up fresh, which means that the brain, every time, whenever you go to a sleep and when you wake up in the next morning, it refreshes. It refreshes. Okay. Go to the next slide. See, here are some of the important facts about the brain I would like to talk. The lateralization of brain. See, here sometimes people say that how can we remember in the normal stage, and the unused part of the brain are removed by default. Say for example, if you have WhatsApp, when you are texting some messages, and some people for some days they don't text it. So what will happen? They won't be seen somewhere. Again, we need to identify them. Here, the brain, the unused parts. We don't get those messages from their messages after 10 days or 15 days. We don't get messages in WhatsApp. Like if you forgot a person, doing texting every day saying good morning or something. And if you forget and for 10 days and all, that will be somewhere at the backside. But here when it comes to brain, the unused parts of the brain are removed by apoptosis. It's a process. It will try to remove them. Right. There is a constant rewiring. That's what when you sleep, when you wake up again, it rewires again. All right. The brain gets upgraded after every sleep, I said. The sleep with the problem and wake up with the solution. During the sleep, it ties up with the brain, with our brain. Sometimes we don't get solutions in the daytime. When you sleep and when you wake up again, you get a solution. That's what it tries to rewire. It's as if like complete deactivation talking more easily to one another. Right? Allowing them to put together the neural solutions to your learning task while you are sleeping. Go to the next. See, procrastination is one of the aspects, what we said, tasks that we want to do and do not wish to do. If we are unfamiliar with some tasks, there's a feeling of negativity, right? There is a feeling of negativity towards that task, and there is a discomfort. And this discomfort disappears if you make efforts. If you make efforts, you can make these zombies, as we call it as zombies, to come to a halt. This will be in case of learning subjects, like say mathematics. It is abstract. Your mind needs to understand it. I would like to just put a halt here and discuss like how our cortex, neocortex has three important aspects. One is what that, as I told earlier, reptilian brain. It just goes with only what, right? What it is. So, for example, highest mountain in the world. So, what is that highest mountain in the world? So, you get an answer. If you get an answer, Everest. Then that what part is completed. You are satisfied with the answer. So, the reptilian brain discusses about what aspect. Now, when you get the solution, which is the highest mountain means immediately you got an answer, Everest, then you are comfortable with the solution. So it gets satisfied. Coming to the point of mammalian brain, the second aspect. Now, here it says it answers the question of how. The how is, how do you know? The question is for the previous example, like we said, Everest is the highest and the biggest mountain. Now let us say in our mind it comes how. How means how did you do it? So when you from the sea level when you look at these mountains and you compare, when you make a comparison, and then you get the solution. Yes, from among this is the highest, right? So, so here we got the answer that to the how part. We have compared it, we got a solution. And that's the reason the how part has been cleared and the mammalian brain is satisfied. Now, the third aspect of the brain is neocortex. The neocortex wants a solution for why. Why? Like, for example, the same Everest example we take. Everest, for what we got? Everest is the highest. And then how do you know that we got it? We have compared with other mountains and this has been found to be. So mammal was also satisfied. Now why? Why for that what we have to do? The questions, the students get, we also get, is when we have to answer the questions to the why part of it. That means here, why that is there in India or border of India? Why it is not there in some other nation? So we get n number of questions. Like say for example, like when we try to go to, like say for example, Jammu, Kashmir or some other pilgrimage there, the oxygen levels will come down. We have to, some people they'll be given this oxygen mask and all, so that they will climb up. The more you go up, it will be difficult for us to get the oxygen. So you get the solution when the why is satisfied. Why not in other nation? Why here only? These are all the why questions will be done at our neocortex aspect of our brain. So now there is one element called, like as I said, our brain has billions of neurons. Go to the previous slide, previous slide, please. Yeah, the neuron part. The neuron part. The cell, like there's a tail like red color. Yeah, yeah. Here, see the dendrites we have seen. These dendrites, it receives and communicates. It receives and communicates through dendrites. Like this cell, it's like a tail. It receives and communications. We try to like we have certain three important aspects like dopamine and serotonin that will be discussed in the next slides. I'll tell you about that. Like let's go to the next slide. Yeah. So chunking is very important. Go to the chunking. Next slide. Next slide. One more. Yeah. One more. Yeah. Chunking. Now here, like what is this chunking? The chunking comes when we make a focused learning. An average individual or a student can read with a focused mind for 25 minutes only. For 25 minutes only. So the first half an hour we call it as, or the 25 minutes, when he or she reads, they makes a creates a kind of chunks. Say for example, I'll go with the marketing example, like the definition of marketing mix, and then what is market. These are all certain kind of definitions. We get the awareness. So those are formed as chunks in our brain. Right. Okay. Let's just have a look at this. See, the compact packages of information that your mind can easily access. Chunks are pieces of information, neuroscientifically speaking, through bound together through meaning of use. Like say for example, when I have studied marketing and market, so all these chunks are formed in your mind. Then working memory and permanent memory. So what we do is, there is another element called diffused learning. So in the diffused learning, what happens is, when you start reading about market, and somewhere you just in your mind you think, yeah, market means like you just start thinking about, okay, some mall or some area. These are all certain things which you normally start connecting to these chunks already there in that, right? So you start connecting to that. Like I'll give you an example. One example I'll give you is Starbucks. Starbucks, you have she's like um, a girl, just like um, a fish kind of, from the sea, she comes up, like the logo. That is just an imagination. Have you ever seen literally that, that kind of fishes will be there in the sea? Did you ever come up with? No. But a kind of imagination, and that imagination, he has made it as a logo. So we start connecting it to that. When I read something, so I start connecting. Okay, somewhere I read this, somewhere I'm going to connect. When we connect these chunks through our diffuse learning, we will connect with this existing chunk and create a kind of chain. So, like for example, when I said Everest, immediately your mind goes to that peak Everest, and next question arises in your mind is valleys are also there. I have also studied about valleys. So then valleys comes into the big trees. See the connectivity. So all these are called as chunks which are already formed in our brain. So we try to connect. But the moment I said Everest, already something which is there in your mind, you start connecting with that. That is called the connectivity. So while working with our memory, your brain is focusing like octopus. It tries to make meaning out of what inputs it is getting and try to form a chunk. Various bits of information is there for you to learn a single task. Example, dressing up for the day. So, like forming a single task of dressing up a day, isn't it? So, we combine complex ideas, concepts together with mini chunks. And you start with worked out problems in the book. This provides you with the basic chunks. Then you need to graduate to go to higher levels. So all these, what happens is, like we need to connect. Unless until you make a focused learning, that will not be connected with our diffused learning. I would like to give a small Sanskrit word which was there. Like we say, Shravanam, Pathanam, Mananam. Right? Shravanam means listening. Pathanam, reading. And Mananam is reinforcement. So these three things goes hand in hand. When you make a focused learning, when you listen well, when you read correctly, right? Then that reading, the Mananam means it is not by hearting. It is reinforcing, recalling what have you learned. When you just recollect, close your book and then go to the sleep, and then before going to bed, you just close your eyes and recall and reinforce. Then that is called a mananam, wherein you remember forever. You don't require specifically. If you by heart, you'll forget. But if you do mananam, the reinforcement will help you understand and remember that particular concept. You go to the next slide. I just brush up this one, forming chunks. Undivided attention means no multitasking. Isn't it? Like, what normally these days we do is, while eating, we watch TV. While studying, we listen music. See, multitasking. That means if we do that, we won't be able to. So understand the basic idea. Understanding is like a super glue that helps hold the underlying memory traces together. Right? Closing the textbook and then trying to recall is the most important learning tool. Do? We just feel that one reading is done and then uske baad, as a student, what they do is normally they just go to the bed, then next day they write. But do you think that is a learning tool? It is not. It is just a one-time reading and then finishing it up, writing an exam. But that won't sustain for a long time, right? So how do you gain the context? When this chunk is applied, when to use and when not to use. Top down and bottom up approach, how to use and when to use. Go to the next slide. See, as I told, people feel that like illusions of competence, testing and mini testing. Probably you may repeat one or two readings. Recall will be the best way, as said by Kirkwick's research of active learning. What he said is recall. When you make a recall, then only your active learning will be there. Otherwise, just reading and remembering till the examination, this will not work out. Because as a teacher also, when we have to, as I shown in the second slide, can we become like those personalities? How do we become such personalities? They are the inspirations. They must have worked hard. They have, like, say, for example, if you talk about Savitribai Phule, before independence, she has transformed. That means she had a commitment. She felt that, I have to bring a change. See, what, how, and why this kind of, discrepancies among. So she has fought for it. So that answering those three aspects. What is the purpose? Why they are not able to study? And why we are kept aside? Because the Varnas were very clear and, were seriously followed, especially in North India. Like when you see Rajaram Mohan Roy, he has got, he has said, no to Sati Sahagamana. In North India, on the same, when husband, dies, the women will be buried. The women will be buried there alive. That means the question of why. So such kind of situation, they brought a transformation, they brought a change. They answered the questions to why this is happening. So what can be done for that in order to overcome? So they are the inspirations. They bring in a lot of change. They brought a newness to the society. What is that we are doing? As a teacher, we should be the inspirers. We should be the inspirers. We have to give answers to the questions and make students to wonder the exclamation part. How come? So this comes only when we make a deep diving into. Say, for example, I have a small example which I have felt like, when a teacher say, for example, I have taken up in 1947, we had foreign goods repair centers in our India. Foreign goods repair centers in our India. So foreign goods were not developed by us. Foreign goods, it's understood, but they get repaired. So what some of the Indian people, what they did is they opened a repair center. They learned it and they opened a repair centers so that can be serviced. So here he has opened it. For example, let's take how an entrepreneurial thought a student can really transform into not just a student and becoming an employee, but also he can transform as an entrepreneur. Like the same guy, we have to create a practical approach among the students so that they just don't study, reinforce, write it and come back. Why, where it is applicable? How can I really do it in a practical way? This is most important. So that has to be learned. That should be created. That should be created among the students. Otherwise, they just study and another group of students will come. They'll study and go. What's the fun we are? We should transform their mindset. Let them be an entrepreneur and let them practice what is being preached, to be honest. So we need to help them take up practical examples. Take up some practical examples. The content, see, we have two aspects, content and context. The content means we deliver concepts. We provide them some case studies. And they to get the solutions or discuss in the classroom. The context is the mind should get the why aspect. Why will be mostly done with the logical brain. We have an emotional brain and a logical brain that we will discuss shortly. So what normally is, we must make our students to learn from the market. Say, for example, we get a Xerox copying shop and all. We'll ask the student to get printout or get a copier. Let them go to the shop. And then And that copier, when they go, they should observe how this guy can become an entrepreneur. Is going to see he does first to solve the problems of the students by giving them the copiers, Xerox copies and all. Then next you have another problem. You need some printout. So what he will do is he will add few more services in his Xerox shop. Like he may give you some kind of emailing facility. He may give you some like so. These are all value addition that takes place. So how can a student can transform from learning to practice? This is what, as a teacher, we have to make them not just being employed in an organization, but providing employment to the people who require them. Such kind of transformation has to be brought by the teachers, we teachers, right? This is what I would like to say. Like why should come up, right? So what is the thing is, this will be learned by making mistakes. Make mistakes and reread again. The retrieval process is the best way to reinforce your learning. I'll give you an example. In 3M company, there was one. Their punchline was, "You need to kiss the frog in order to acquire the prince." It was such a wonderful concept. I felt you need to kiss the frog in order to acquire the prince. Their basic concept is you have to make mistakes in order to bring out one new innovation. In order to bring out an innovation. And likewise, I heard, I'll quote one more example. One gentleman said, "Sir, I'm working in this organization for the last 30 years. I was not served a single memo till date." So that new chap, the young CEO, he came and he said, "Please come into my cabin." And when he said that, this old man went, see, I may be praised and then I may be promoted. But that CEO said, "Please submit your resignation. Please submit your resignation." The question comes in our mind, why? Here is the answer. You have to make illusion of competition is make mistakes, reread again. Retrieval process is the best way. That means this gentleman has not made any mistake, means he was not served any memo. That means he has not made any mistake. If he has not made any mistake, he has not learned anything. As simple as that. So when you don't learn, you are like an idle stock to me. 30 years you have wasted in my organization. That's the reason he was asked to resign on that day. Isn't it? So student must be made to reinforce, practice, learn from the mistake, but not deliberately, right? No, I made a mistake, madam, wantedly. That should not happen. So we have to make them think, then deep dive into that process and come out with a solution, right? And encouraging forming concept maps. Testing is a way to reinforce learning. We all know Pavlovian, that method. If some of them, I just repeat that, that today also we have that bell, right? Lunch break and all, the dog and the meat, that saliva. So this is a kind of example which we quote. Learning takes place with practice in the due course of it. So as a teacher, we must make them reinforce the learning, not just learn. So exam ke baad, that's fine, over. That should not happen, right? So here, there are no more than 4 to 5 chunks in a short-term memory. Therefore, it is limited. So what we have to do, we need to perfect these chunks so that you will send it to the long-term memory, isn't it? So what we need to perfect these 4 or 5 chunks, we need to, clear them so that will be sent to the long-term memory. As I said, humans can remember anything. Only thing is that they have to consciously focus the learning is required. So we need to avoid illusions of competence. Glancing at the solution will always make you think you know the sum. Most of the people, I'll tell examples. They just see this and then they tell us the example. Yeah, I know about it. Yeah, I heard about it. I knew. So this does not make you really, I know, no, to that extent only don't know. And beyond that, they don't practice because they have the awareness. Just because they have the awareness, they feel that they know. But to be honest, they just only have a glancing at the solution. You are not really knowing the subject. So what you have to do? You need to work out yourself. You have to make the student to work out. Just the glancing will not help us. Like we see movies and we'll forget. And otherwise we try to forget this heroine in that movie and that heroine in this movie because if we just glance it. But if you really focus, you'll still today, like there are certain movies which even today ages we remember, like Maya Bazar in Tamil and in Telugu it has come, Mahanati Savitri. Like we remember, I believe we have seen and we remember maximum songs, maximum every dialogues also we try to, because we have focused that it is so effective that we were able to recollect and reinforce. Yes, today also we knew it. We knew some of the dialogues. Why? Because we made a focused learning. We just read it. We have understood, and that was so effective through communication and the AV that we can reinforce any time. The same thing we have to create. Go to the next slide. Recall is the most powerful tool. If you can prepare a solution manual for yourself and compare with authors, it will be better. Google creates an illusion of competence. Better to have your recall session in a place something different from that of where you generally study. Example, library, right? We get to know many things. It's only illusion that, yeah, Google is very brilliant. But when you recall by yourself, that specifically we all know it's a library. Go to the next slide, please. What motivates us? Like, I'll just give a simple overview. Like these are the chemicals that influence how our neurons respond to other neurons and impact subconscious mind. These three are very, very important. Please understand. Acetylcholine, dopamine, and serotonin. See here, the acetylcholine neurons form neuromodulatory connections to the cortex that are particularly important for focused learning. Where they are there? In our own nervous system, isn't it? They are there in our nervous system. When you are paying close attention, these acetylcholine neurons project widely and activate circuits that controls synaptic plasticity, leading to new long-term memory. That means paying close attention will lead to new long-term memory. This is within us. We have to generate that. Dopamine neurons. See, I told you three types of neurons. Acetylcholine, then dopamine. We'll go to dopamine. These dopamine neurons are part of a large brain system that controls reward learning. And in the basal ganglia, dopamine predicts likely reward. See, I will tell you an example of this dopamine part. What I have understood is, here, like go to the next slide. Say like here, when suppose the person who is an alcoholic, this is the kind of pleasure chemical. Dopamine is a pleasure chemical. Like for example, you wanted to feel like having more. For example, alcoholic, every day he wants to have some more he wanted to have. Then what he will do? He'll start to consume them. No, but that is over excess is not acceptable, right? Excess should be controlled. So what we have to do? We have to have some precautionary methods. What we can do? Suppose if he is an alcoholic, what do you do? I have some few measures. What we can do in that particular area where he is trying to buy that liquor, you must see that those shops are evacuated to elsewhere. Another thing is that he must be made busy. and those the liquor bottles, whatever we call, should become costlier that he cannot afford. So these are certain things we can create a kind of distancing from those over pleasure. We feel like having more, isn't it? So that is one. So loss of dopamine neurons leads to lack of motivation. You should have to such an extent where they are required. If you don't have dopamine neurons, it will lead to what happens is lack of motivation and something called anhedonia, which is a loss of interest in things that once gave you pleasure and today they are not giving. Like, even sometimes when I look at the curriculum, what we teach, I feel a student, when he sees the first unit of a particular subject, it should create an interest among the student that, "Iske baad, yeah, it should generate some kind of interest. Okay, definitions, then next analytical part." So that kind of interest, the curriculum also should generate so that he goes to the next level. If it is something, all theories and theorems in the first unit and going to the models in the second unit, and if he is not clear, he cannot form chunks, diffusion of chunks, and then connecting the chunks. It will be somewhere there and somewhere all the models, and then so the curriculum also should be created in such a way they have to be easy for the student to move ahead. He can arouse some kind of interest that, yes, I will read this particular topic. It sounds interesting to me. So such should be the curriculum also. I would say, it's my opinion. So severe loss of dopamine neurons causes resting tremor, slowness, rigidity. Look at this. This is called Parkinson's disease. Look how we are. All these are there in our neurons. So we should make sure that to a balanced extent, the dopamine neurons to be received, wherein he gets motivated, right? And he gets interest in that. So a balanced level. And ultimately, see, as we said, when we have this kind of disease, ultimately it leads to catatonia, a complete lack of any movement. Dopamine neurons are part of our unconscious part of our brain. When you promise to treat yourself something after a study section, you are tapping into your dopamine system. Remember, after each Pomodoro, please reward yourself. Please reward yourself. Go to the next slide, please. So this is the third part of our neurons. That is serotonin. Serotonin. So it is a third diffuse neuromodulatory system that strongly affects your social life. As we know, when we have been reading, right? So Prozac, which is prescribed for clinical depression, raises the level of serotonin activity. The level of serotonin is also closely linked to risk-taking behavior. Lower serotonin will lead to high risk-taking. And like, for example, high risk-taking, as the example, you can just read through your, right? Some kind of, what do you call, if it is high, then what is the situation which I've already mentioned here, at some kind of lower level of serotonin, right, in society. So all these three should be balanced. What are those? Like what are those three? That is acetylcholine, dopamine, serotonin. Okay, these three are. Now, the next one is emotions. Go to the next slide, please. Emotions. Yeah, emotions. The aspect of emotions is a strong feeling deriving from one's circumstances. So it all depends upon our mood, mindset, right? A state of mind, a temporary state of mind, or relationship with others, right? Emotions and cognition are related and are intertwined. Like, emotional stability is most important part of learning. Suppose you are studying, a student is studying, you are given them some tasks, and if they are reading or going through that, and suddenly somebody says, uh, today I'm telling you, the gadgets are like the most distracting factors. the most distracting part. They are really worried why someone has not made a liking in Insta, or the why someone has not texted me, why my mobile is not vibrating. So these are all some kind of distractions which are not making us to be emotionally stable. You get immediately angry, you feel overjoyed. These are all mood changes takes place because of some kind of distractions which are there in our mind. So that as a teacher we have to take care that how why. In some of the colleges what they do is all the cell phones to be deposited at the while you are getting into the class, and then while going you can collect it unless until emergency. If there is any emergency, the parents will call to the college or some kind of. So these are certain things. So emotional stability is most important part of learning. As a teacher, we must be emotionally balanced while delivering a content to the student. Yeah. Next, go to that. So create a library of chunks. The more library of chunks you create, the more you'll be able to learn, the more you'll be connecting. So isolating oneself and then reading to increase the number of chunks is an excellent way to create chunks. That as a teacher, we must know that, we have to create such kind of, creation of. Then the chunks may be used not only in one discipline, but may be transferred to other disciplines like physics, chemistry, and many other subjects. Your diffuse mode can help you connect to two or more chunks together in a new ways to solve novel problem. That means you are trying to develop a creativity among the students. This will help if they go ahead with the creating more chunks in an isolated reading and learning. As you build each chunk, it is filling in a part of your larger knowledge picture. But if you don't practice with your growing chunks, they can remain faint, right? And it's harder to put together the big picture what you are trying to learn. Go to the next slide. So sequential versus global. There are two ways for us to solve problems. First, there's sequential step-by-step reasoning, and second, through a more holistic intuition. But I'll tell you, all the time intuition may not work, but the step-by-step process reasoning will definitely work out. Sequential thinking, where each small step leads deliberately towards a solution, involves a focus mode. Intuition is, on the other hand, often seems to require this creative diffuse mode, linking of several seemingly different focus. Intuition is good, but not always correct. You need to verify by focus mode. Yeah, go to the next slide. See this overlearning. Overlearning is like a good practicing for like overlearning. Anything overlearning is like as I said, TED talk, but it will prevent you from going further. And focusing on more different and difficult material is called deliberate practice. It is often what makes the difference between a good student and a great student. So you need to practice deliberately. When you do that, you can transform as a great student than just a good student. That as a teacher, we must transform that. Then the other aspect is the mindset. That is your initial simple thought repeated and strengthened may prevent a better idea or a solution from being found. So that has to be taken care of it. So mastering a new subject means learning basic chunks and learning how to select and use different chunks. The best way to learn that is by practicing, jumping back and forth between the problem or situation that require different techniques or strategies. This is called interleaving. Interleaving that starts building flexibility and what do you call creativity, as I told you. Yeah. So these are steps which we have to understand. Go to the next slide, please. So here we have procrastination process versus product. Process means the flow of time and the habits, the actions associated with the flow of time. Product is an outcome. For example, a homework assignment that you need to finish. That's the product. To prevent procrastination, you want to avoid concentrating on a product. Instead, your attention should be on building processes. Right? Isn't it? So, no need to use willpower, as it will be a cognitive burden of ego depletion. Then we'll talk about the teachers. Let me come back to development of a teacher. Before the class, during the class, after the class, evaluation of students' projects and PhD writing. See here, go to the next slide, before the class. Go to the next slide. Next slide, yeah, before the class. Create a content. It may be an anecdote, history. Before Coke. Like, before Coke, what was there? It was, see, have we not consumed any beverage? This is part of beverages, right? Hard drink or soft drink. So, have we not consumed before Coke entered in the market? So, we should know the history of it. Well, so, for example, I'm from Hyderabad. Before the Coke or Thumbs Up entered in this particular market, there, I used to feel what could have been. Then we went into the history. That was one soda, which was created which was created and served in hotels where Nawabs of Hyderabad, Nawab's children, and they used to come to those hotels and consume them. I exactly don't recollect that particular one, the name of the soda also. Paulson, I think, yeah, some soda. So that means we should know the history before, create the content, create a kind of, why are we studying this? Try to learn the historical aspect and try to know about the personalities. Steve Jobs, as we all know, I would like to tell one story about Steve Jobs. I believe it was when we know the story of it, he said, about we all know that genes when iPhone was created and it was brought to him and the engineers showed him that he has immediately thrown it in the water. And then when it got it was just settled in the water, he said, I'm not happy with this. The engineers were shocked. Why he said this particular question? What is the reason? Then he said, when it is just settled in the water and it is not floating, which means there is a gap in that particular product. There is a gap in that particular product. So the engineers, okay, when it is not floating, that means there is a gap. Still, you can add some shape or some kind of thing, whatever you can incorporate there, which is useful for using a mobile. Then again, the engineers went and then they just looked at it, what could be wrong, where the gap is. They really found the gap. And they try to work out on that particular gap, and that they bridge the gap, and then again they brought it back and showed to Bill Gates. Again, this time he has thrown in the water and he said it was floating on the water. See that. So that means we should talk to that. We should know the historical aspect, why it is, and why they are so famous. Why Bill Gates is so famous. Though he worked in IBM and all when they established there. So how are they going to get it wrong? The question of why is required when we should also know the historical aspect of it. See, Amul, we all know Amul. If you just learn about the historical aspect of Amul, as a teacher, we must tell them, before Amul, kya tha? Why Amul is so famous? Then actually, the need was, for the military people, they wanted butter. That, because India was ruled by them, right? Britishers. That was sticky. Already there was one Paulson butter, I think, yeah. And then when it was sticky, what this Amul, the Paulson, later it was named as Amul. The Paulson baby is now Amul, utterly butterly, that Amul baby. he said, okay, it should, the need was identified, it is sticky and like they are not liking it. So what can be done? They have added some salt in that and they made it into cubes, right? Today you get that butter. It is not sticky. Have you seen? Yeah, it is not sticky. This means the we should understand why they are able to do, why we are not able to do. Such kind of creativity and such kind of inspiration they should get from them, that what we can do differently. So you give them before the class, give them, just learn about this and come to the class, learn about this. Then students will come. Now let's go to the next aspect, before the class, right? So, and sometimes we also get, are we at the end of the this particular topic? Just see before the class. Go to the next slide. Yeah. So I will tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you before the class and during the class also. The intelligent students will ask different questions. Again, the context will change. Context will change, and we teacher also get to learn many things. Then after the class. So this is how we have to create a connectivity. The situation, when the student asks a question, the student who was able to focus will learn from the teacher and he will ask during the class, and after the class we have to give them some kind of assignment so that they are connected with that. So this is all about the concept of faculty development, which I have taken from this neuro aspect of it, and then connecting it to the development of faculties and learning with some examples. Uh, now I open the floor for the questions if they have any.
The session
I'm
is
done
open for
with my session.
discussion now. The session is open for discussion now. You can unmute and interact with the resource person, or you can post the questions in the chat box also. Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am.
I would like to put a question to all the audience here sitting, the faculty members and all. Why do you feel that our maps are all correct or wrong? All our maps are correct or wrong? Please answer. You can text also. Our maps, geographical maps, are correct or wrong? Please answer the question. Do you feel they're all correct what you're viewing today? Or they're wrong? You can text. I'm just going through the messages if there are any. Are the maps correct or wrong? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Wrong. So can you, Divakar, can you just justify your answer? You said wrong. Divakar, you can unmute and answer. Or you can text if your network issue or something is there, you can text. And this is an open question for you all. Are the maps correct or wrong? Geographical maps. You can take your time and you can tell them. But Divakar said it is wrong. I want him to answer, or otherwise, fine. You please, it's an open question for you all. Take it and just learn. That's it. And the answer is wrong. You please learn from your end. This is a open forum that you can learn afterwards. I hope I'm done.
Participants, any questions? You can post your questions in the chat box also. Any questions? Ma'am, I think there are no questions from your side, ma'am. Shall we wind up?
Yeah.
On behalf of IoT Academy, we thank Dr. Vinodini for the enlightening and enriching session. Thank you once again for the amazing presentation, ma'am. We thank you for enhancing our knowledge with the commendable presentation, ma'am. We thank you very much for your efforts. I thank all the participants for joining the session today. Kindly submit the feedback form using the link that has been posted in the chat box. Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your efforts, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for being wonderful audience and IoT. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
You're welcome, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. It was an amazing session, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll sign out for the day.
Yes, ma'am, you can. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Please submit your feedback form using the link that has been posted in the chat box. Thank you all.